And so, it begins. Hello there, writerly friend. Welcome back to Max Answers Writing Advice Questions. Editing, revision, edition. That was actually really good. Oh man, that was really good. Anyhow, hello there. You sent your revision and editing questions, and I'm here ready to give you my advice. I've got a 3-minute timer on all these questions. I've got a pile of questions here. The first one's gonna go long because we have to clarify a couple of points. But before we go anywhere, allow me to give you the formal disclaimer as always, and remind you that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who looks precisely like this. I'm ready to get going. The first question goes a little bit like this. This first question is a little... I originally had this at the end because it's the last question that I wrote down, but I kind of want to answer it first so we can clarify two things about revision. And the question goes a little bit like this. I have a friend who edits stuff for me, but her edits always sound like she hates it, and it's really discouraging and makes me just ignore her stuff or never write again. What should I do? I am afraid I will hurt her feelings and she won't edit for me ever again if I tell her. Why am I giving you this question first? Why am I giving you this question first when there are a lot of really centralized questions? Well, I'm putting this first out there to make a clarification right now. Editing and feedback are not the same thing. When you give somebody your work and tell them edit them, you're saying, hey, change it so it fits or it aligns with your style of storytelling. I would like to recommend everyone out there to not only use the correct language, but also whenever you give somebody your work, ask them and tell them, because communication is key, as always, as with any relationship, like the one I have with you. Communication is key. Transparent, honest communication. Tell them, hey, I'm writing this story and I'm looking for these points and here are a few questions at the end of the booklet that you can read. Boom. That's the way we did it in college. You gotta tell people what you're looking for, otherwise they're not gonna tell you what you're looking for. You're not gonna get what you want. And you gotta understand something. Every writer is different. Every writer likes different things. One of the things that I learned from taking all those courses is that some people hate particular types of writing for no objective reason. I would have people who, we would shuffle all the students and then you'll get a random group of people. And then they'll be like, oh, I can't blank stand fantasy. Fantasy writers are just a bunch of blanks. A real thing someone told me in a college classroom. So I thought, yeah, I probably shouldn't share my fantasy story with you. I will ask for another partner. That's just the way life is. It's entirely likely your friend is not into what you're writing. Don't give anyone the power to just change your writing, because you're gonna end up in situations like this, where it's like, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. That's how you would tell the story, not how I would tell the story. And now we're into the actual formal relationship advice part of this question. Talk to her. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna be super freaking blunt right now. If you are afraid of hurting her feelings because she's not gonna do what you want her to do and you're not gonna get what you want to get out of her, that doesn't sound like... I'm not gonna poke my nose in your business, I'm just saying talk to her. The only way things are gonna work. Or ask for feedback. Ask her to not make changes to your writing. Talk. Communication. That's it for this question. I wanted to clarify those things. I know it's not like a super solid answer for you because this is people question. I can't give you a solid answer on that. But I'm putting that clarification out there right now. Editing is giving somebody the power to change your writing. To change it so it aligns with how they tell stories. Your editor is someone that you trust, someone whose writing you look up to, someone whose writing you enjoy, and someone who you wouldn't mind them changing one of your characters or the things the story goes or the way the story is told. It's a lot of power. Don't just give it to anybody, okay? Ask for feedback instead, okay? Give them questions, analyze, work together, talk, okay? It's the only way the world's gonna move forward. You gotta talk to people, okay? And the next question goes a little bit like this. If I thought of something that really was necessary at a past point in my story, should I go back up and add it or just edit it during post? Oh, you're gonna know what I'm gonna say. You can know what I'm gonna say. When I'm writing the first draft, I focus on writing the first draft. I don't do anything else. I don't focus on anything else. You know what I do? Whenever I'm writing, at the bottom of my text file, because I don't do Word, I just do a blank text file, no formatting, Nothing. Nothing to distract me. At the bottom of it, I have like a line of a line and then just like notes. And then I add notes as I go through the story. And I do things such as, wait a minute, check on chapter 3 if it contradicts chapter 2, this and this and this and so and so and so. I just do lines like that. There are times when I'm like, oh, that's a really dramatic change. I'm gonna write this note in big bold letters in all caps, so I make sure to change it. I never stop in the act of writing. Stuff like that can really dramatically just kill your momentum. And when I'm writing, I just want to get writing done and moving. So for me, at least for how I see the world, for how I think about things, I think you should probably not stop writing. Make a note of it. Make a big, bold note that you're never going to lose, that you're never going to misplace, and keep on moving. Next question, and this is a really general one, and I'm excited to answer it. How long does it take you to revise? Timer on. This is the most objective question ever. This is super objective, and the answer is that it varies. There's another question coming up. That's actually probably near the end, but it's about the nature of how I edit, and I edit using faces. And you will create your own way to do things. Again, you're a writer of your own, a person of your own. You have the power to create your own writer's toolbox and create your own way to make things work. Over my own course of things, I've created faces. It varies. I can't just give you a time because I do this for a living. You know, I can spend the whole day doing this and, you know, move faster that way. It's really subjective. What I want you to know and take from this answer is to write a lot, edit a lot, and as you do stuff, find your own format, your own program, your own checklist, if you may, of things that you go through when you're checking stuff. This is all experience. This is all absolutely experience. Or practice, because ultimately, they are the same thing. I can't give you like, because a part of me wants to just give you a number, but a part of me would hate to give you that number because then you would hold yourself against that unrealistic number that I can do because I've been doing this forever. That's why I'm not going to give you one. But I can tell you that it's all about, because it's not about how long it takes, it's about the end product, right? Because like the first draft can take as long as you can, because, or as long as you need it to, because the goal is to create a product at the end, to create a bunch of words and pages that you can later clean up and make into a story. The editing process should take as long as it needs to because you're working to create a polished product. This is the last time you're gonna read this story and make edits on it. You gotta make it work. You gotta make it shiny. You gotta make it pretty, and you gotta take time. And I'll tell you one thing. It takes me a little while to edit because I take pauses. I literally spent days not doing anything else, not doing anything else related to the story. Not even listening to the playlist. I disconnect myself. And I also I record videos, I do something else, I don't think about the story, and I step away. So I can read it again and not become numb to the details, to the letters, to the way of the words and the sentences. Because after you read a work for a really long while, you stop reading it. Your brain just starts seeing the words you've seen before and the sentences, and it skips by them. And that's how you can clearly miss really important details. Editing takes me a little while because I have to take pauses. I do a couple passes, maybe I let it sit for a week, I'll do a couple more passes, we move on from there, okay? General question, I know, with a general answer. Let's move on. This next one's a little bit of a long question, but I want you to follow along with me, okay? I am writing a novel for NaNoWriMo, and I am at 20,000 words, and actually today I have to be at 40,000 words. Remember, NaNoWriMo is not about the word counts, it's about making the habit to write. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're wrong. Send them to me. Tell them I told you that they're wrong. I am so behind, and I'm trying to write as much as I can, but the problem is that I give too much details, and I think some chapters are over-explained and doesn't have enough action and are incredibly boring. Can that be fixed in editing, and how? Or what tips could you give me while during the writing process? I need you to understand something right now, and you're probably younger. Okay, there's a cat in this house. You haven't seen him yet, but I thought he was sneaking up behind me for a moment, like Five Nights at Freddy's style. Okay, restarting the timer. Let's go. I don't know how old you are. But I want you to think about what I'm going to tell you. Analyze what's going on around you and seek to find the source to the problem. Because right now, what I'm seeing here is you feel that you're under pressure, so you're rushing and you're writing the story not like you wanted to, and you're judging the story because you're in a hurry, because you should have already been at this many time ago. Is this on you, or is it on the format that you put on yourself? Because here's the dealio. Whenever I sit down to write, I sit down with a goal. I tell myself I'm going to write this many words or these many chapters, these many scenes, and I'm going to move forward. Writing is about climbing a mountain, if you may, walking a path. It's step by step. And it's like telling somebody to run a marathon faster. You know, it's like, if you're not going to make it, run faster. And that's not how it works. You can run a marathon at any speed you want to. It's about completing the gosh doodly darn marathon. One more thing. Right now, while we're writing the first draft, especially if you're a younger writer and this is the first time you're doing things, you're going to think that your writing is garbage. You're going to think that it is absolute trash. It probably is not. It most likely is not. You're being super critical of your writing right now because maybe a part of you is doing the fleet response. You want to get away from this. Maybe you can justify it by saying your writing is not good. Be level-headed. Analyze yourself. Understand where these fears are coming from and fight against it. To finally answer your question, can all of this be fixed? Everything. Everything can be fixed in editing. You need to understand that, like, your book is not a solid thing. You're not sculpting something out of marble. You're not painting on a canvas. It's formless, amorphous. You can edit it and change it, and you can change everything later. It's all fine. You've got the time. You've got the time. Take it easy. Make this the best story possible. You're not in a hurry. Anyone out there who tells you it's a race is wrong. Take your time. Because this book is going to come out once. This book is going to make a first impression on somebody once. Make it the best first impression. Okay? As for what tips I have while in the writing process, don't worry about those things. Focus on telling the story. Focus on telling the story. That's why what gets me about NaNoWriMo is that people take it as though it's hard rules and you gotta do this many words, otherwise you suck. It's about the havoc. It's about the havoc. The habit. Learn to sit down and write. Disable all those barriers in your head that tells you that you suck. And keep on writing. That's it. Tell stories. Give them time. It takes time. Every writer is different. And take care of yourself. Okay? Okay. Next question. Next question goes a little bit like this. When I've just written something, I usually am pretty happy with it and wouldn't really know what to even change. Because I do all the minor changes like rephrasing or synonyms. Don't mind that. In the process of writing. When I come back to it, say a year later, I can see where the story has problems and need to be changed. Now, as you see, there's a lot of time where I just literally have to forget about the writing in order to properly revise it. Is this normal / something a lot of writers have? If not, how can I see more quickly what I need to change? Timer on. If I can hit the button. It is perfectly normal. It is perfectly normal. It's actually what everyone recommends. I have a bit of a disclaimer, a little asterisk in that corner, but in order to revise something better, you have to step away from it. There's the cat right there. I see him. I see him. There's a cat. Okay. Hey, Yanta. Hey, Yanta, wanna come answer some questions for me? Nope. Nope. Waiting for mom, huh? Kitty should be home from work in a moment. Anyhow, that's unrelated. The clock is ticking. Okay, it takes time to revise a book because after you have immediately finished writing it, you're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this, or everything is wrong with this book. Step away. You are this close to the writing. You can't see the details. Step away. Give it some time. I would say right now, how can you see this more quickly? How can you see more quickly what needs to be changed? Don't wait a year. Don't wait a year. 3 weeks at most. 3 weeks minimum. 3 weeks at most. No. 3 weeks minimum. A month at most if you want to. Like, waiting a whole year is way too long. Honestly, like, for me, I wait a month at most, 3 weeks minimum, because by then, like, a lot of things are gonna happen in 3 weeks. I can finish a whole LP within 3 weeks. There's a lot of time there. I would recommend you to maybe pick up smaller projects in between those weeks, so you don't have to, like, stop the middle of a book to revise another book. But yeah, definitely not wait a year. I would definitely say, this is a thing everybody does. Everybody deals with this. Everybody has to find their happy medium. For me, definitely not wait a year. As for the next question, a really good one, by the way. I finished the first draft of a book earlier this year, which is going to be the first book of a series, and I was thinking about editing it soon, but I'm not sure whether I should carry on writing the rest of the series and then edit them all together, or write and then edit one by one. treating them as separate novels. Any advice? Yes, I'm going to tell you exactly how I do things. Which is, by the way, not objectively correct, it's just how I do things. Every writer is different. Find your own way to do things. I definitely don't think you should wait to write all of them and then edit them, because that's going to take too damn long. That's just going to take too damn long. I don't think that's going to be functional. I don't think so. The way I do things is this, okay? What I like to do, and it's really hard to visualize, but what I like to do is that I like to have the next book already written before I revise the previous book. So okay, in your scenario, you have the first book written, write the second book, then edit the first book. Why? Because you have scope now. You know what's going to happen in the second book now. Finally, you know. Planning and outlining can give you ideas, but it doesn't matter until you write it. Now you know, and now you can feed some of those ideas into the first book. That's how genius happens, by the way. That's how those little foreshadowing moments happen. I recommend do not revise the current book until the next one is already written. That's the way I do things. I like to have even more already done, but that's because I work really fast. So for me, it's more effective. It's more functional for my time investment. That's how I do things. I hope that helps you or give you an idea, or if anything, I just give you my own point of view. And the next question goes a little bit like this. This is actually a question similar to one I got several times in this series, but I'll answer them anyway. I am relatively new to writing as I am working on my first graphic novel. However, doing my first draft, there's a question in the back of my mind that always bugs me. How do you know when it's time to put it down and stop revising and then ship it out? Okay, this is one of those general questions, but I'm gonna give you a time frame, okay? Write the damn thing. Excuse the expression. First and foremost, for anyone out there who's worrying about stuffs like this and worrying about, wait a minute, what should I title the third book in the series if the first book in the series is titled this? Don't worry about any of that stuff. Write the damn thing first. Write it, let it sit a few weeks, 3 to 4, maybe 2 months. Not a year though. That's a little too much for me. Let it sit, pick it up, okay, I have to clarify this right now. You're asking about graphic novels, which is an entirely different medium. I have little experience with it. This is more related to writing or applying writing to that, okay? Take it with a grain of salt, all right? Let the book sit, pick it up. I do a few passes through it, stopping for days at a time to let the story cool down. I'm going to go over how I do things better in another question, but I'd use different formats. I read my story in different devices, so I never get used to the writing. I don't want my brain to start doing mental arithmetic and ignore the details, because that's how you get mistakes there. Really easy mistakes like duplicate words or missing words and stuff like that. I do all those things, then I let it sit. I send it to somebody. A few people, get their feedback on it, see what they have to think. I go through their notes, and once I believe that everything has come to place, I read it one more time, as though I'm a stranger, and by then I think this story is pretty much clean. There comes a point where you get diminishing returns, where it's just like you're wasting your time. And I'm not saying you can ruin the story. Hint, hint, that's foreshadowing for a later question. I don't think you can ruin a story because writing is amorphous. You can always fix it, but you're wasting your time. There comes a point in which, like, I'm reading my story again for the 10th time. I'm like, I don't know if you have to. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It sounded like I was like burning alive because I'm a vampire and the sunlight was touching me. Anyhow, yeah, it's a really general time frame. I say write it, revise it, feedback, double check the feedback, and you're golden. It's impossible to catch all the mistakes, seeing as how professionally edited books still have typos in them. But that's life, though. You gotta still make the best product possible, though. You gotta ship out the best thing possible. Because, again, your book is gonna make a first impression once. Make it the best first impression, okay? This question is a little complex. Follow me up on that, okay? Hey Max, I have a revision question. So my story revolves around a thief, and when I started it was all going fine as my protagonist was a kid and he had a lot to learn. As such, he made lots of mistakes and it all lended itself nicely to making an interesting story. However, as he grew older and more experienced, writing him just stealing stuff has become boring. I can't wait for the moment he dies and the story ends. Got any tips for when I have to revise those scenes later on? Okay, I have like three tips for this. First and foremost, okay, I'm just gonna start a timer. Okay, I have to formally remind everyone that conflict doesn't have to be external. Conflict doesn't have to be fighting, doesn't have to be combat, doesn't have to be people's lives being a danger. Conflict can be internal as well. And maybe I'm getting inside of your head, and maybe that's disrespectful, but I'm sitting here reading this question, and I think to myself, why is that boring? Why is reading about a character stealing stuff boring? Is it because he wins? Is it because he's not failing anymore? I mean, because, like, that happened before, though, right? I mean, because he won and he failed and he still won and he's still winning. I don't think drama doesn't come from people losing or winning. Because in most stories, people win. In some, they lose. But they both have drama. How do they do that? Because of things being at risk. Now, those things can be lives, they can be money, they can be reputation, they can be your social standing. If you think that it's going to be boring to see this character stealing stuff, I would like to recommend you to, during the revision process, consider adding a little bit more to this character's narration. I mean, what are they? What is going on in their life? Is there really nothing in their life that bothers them? Why are they even stealing stuff anymore? I mean, aren't they just filthy rich already? They've been doing this their entire life. They're probably the best thief who's ever lived. What sort of problems could a person like that have? Emotional problems? Are they doing all of this for a particular someone, or a particular someone who is not even alive anymore? What is driving them to do things? And let us see it from their point of view, or if this is a third-person narration story, let them talk about it. Let them talk about it, you know? Because you need to understand this. Even the greatest people you know, the greatest people you look up to, are still people, because they spend their whole life here. They don't forget their mistakes. They don't forget the times they screwed up. And people out there may look up to them, may think they're amazing and awesome and flawless. They're still human, though. They're still afraid. They still make mistakes. And I'm a person, I'm all about character. I don't care whether this character, he, she, they, steals stuff or not. I want to see what they think about stealing. How do they justify stealing? They're an old person still stealing stuff, maybe benefiting from this, being filthy rich. How do they justify it? You know? My general recommendation, I'm a sucker for character. That's why this is my recommendation. Get into their head. Let them talk. Give them a chance to share their own points of view. Because there's no way this person who happens to steal things for a living has no problems in their life, has no things in their life that makes them wish their life wasn't simpler. As for the next question, what aspects of your story do you find the easiest to edit? Is it dialogue or description? I can't seem to fix any problem areas without a beta, sometimes even the same one, complaining that now that aspect of the narrative is lacking. I should have read that in a British accent. What aspects of your writing do you find the easiest to edit? Is that offensive? Scurry Q sent this question, by the way. That's why I'm using this voice. She's got the best accent ever. I'm so jelly. What do I find to be the easiest thing? He's sitting on my bag now. Anyhow, what do I find the easiest to edit? And how do I find equilibrium through this? Go. The easiest for me, it's weird because I do things in phases. So I don't really, I'm not like, okay, in this read, I'm gonna analyze the dialogue. I don't do that. I just read the whole thing. I read it as though I'm a reader. I read it as though it's someone else's writing. That's why you need the distance. That's why you wait. That's why you wait so long. Because you want to be able to read it as though somebody else wrote it. And somebody else did. You from a month ago wrote it. My favorite part. Okay, I'm going to do my favorite and least favorite. My favorite part of the entire process is having text-to-speech or dictation. Having the computer read my story back to me. I work on a Mac, and Macs come with pre-installed voice-to-text. You just highlight text and then press a hotkey, and it reads it to you in one of like 100 voices. You can get Samantha, also known as the Siri voice, to read your work. And I actually switch voices depending on the story, fun fact. And having the story be read to me really helps me because it helps me catch things that my brain would autocorrect. And this brings me to my least favorite part. I hate reading my work because my brain is silly and not very silly at the same time. Your brain will autocorrect double words. It will autocorrect missing words in a sentence because your brain is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And it's weird for me because I have to read my work out loud, and I have to have the computer read it to me to catch things. Oh my god. The opening sentence, the very first freaking sentence in A Secret Named Sophie had a typo in it that everyone missed because our freaking brains were autocorrecting that missing letter. It's funny. That's what writing is. I freaking despise it. Now about equilibrium. If you haven't already, Score EQ, I recommend you to read Stephen King's On Writing because he talks about feedback. And he talks about betas, and he tells you this. Whenever the betas tell you, fix this, consider fixing it and move on from there. If two betas give you contradicting pieces of feedback, a step between and then ask yourself, which of the two do I agree with, and go with that. Opinions from betas are not absolute. You have your own opinion as well. And I like to believe that everyone who wants to write a book and publish it can be level-headed enough to say, yeah, this needs work. Yeah, you know what, this is not perfect. Yeah, you know what, that's pretty good. I'm proud of that. That's a pretty good story. If I was a reader, I would love that part. If I was a reader, I would not like this part. Analyze feedback. Because just because they're saying it is just their point of view. I'm not saying that feedback is meaningless. I'm not saying that you should ignore it. But it's another person's point of view. Understand that no matter what you do, someone out there's not going to like what you do. No matter what you do, someone out there's going to love it for no reason. Those two extremes are kind of the reality of things. Find people whose opinion you enjoy, people you look up to, people whose writing you like, and see what they think of your writing. Analyze their feedback and move on from there. It's not about right or wrong or about messing things up or making them better, making them worse. It's about finding the best balance, creating the best story possible, and creating the best story that you could be proud of. I hope I answered the question. Gosh, I hope I did. Next question. Do you revise on paper or on your laptop? My throat is like burning. Back in the day, I would go to like Staples, which is like an office store, and actually print my manuscripts and give it to my betas. And I would also print a copy for myself. Before all of that, I would print a copy for myself, do edits by hand for one of the later phases. And I found that that was kind of wasteful. And when I moved twice, I was like, I have like 30 pounds of paper of revisions and manuscripts, ancient manuscripts. And I'm like, I can't carry all of this around. I really can't. I got rid of most of it. Like, a lot of old feedback, like, that's just, you know, I mean, it's nice and stuff, but it served its purpose. You know, I hate to be mean like that, but, you know, it was like 30 pounds of paper. I do all of it digitally now. I use Evernote. Every time I start a new pass, I make a new note. I make a new copy of my entire manuscript. Why? So you can always fall back, and so there's a trail of changes. So I think somebody in the past told me that was crazy, that I had like 6 different manuscripts, like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 6. But that's just how I work. It makes me feel safe because, you know, I told you, my PC died. I lost writing. And I kept it all in one file because it was the laziest, easiest way to do things. And I changed because, my god, I don't want to lose a book ever again. And also, you gotta have versions though, because it's the best way to make sure that you're always moving forward. But anyhow, I do all of my work on my laptop now. The next question, it's funny because I can tell who it is because of the writing. This is Kendra. The next question goes a little bit like this. I was wondering if you had any tips for finding beta readers. You know a bit about the craziness that has gone into editing the mess I created last NaNoWriMo. Not repeating that mistake again. Write in order. Yeah, every writer is different. Write in order. Write chronologically. That's just the way my brain works. If you write differently, that's good. You're blessed. You have the power to write out of order. I gotta write in order, because otherwise my brain explodes. Anyhow. But I'm finally ready to begin to get feedback. But I'm admittedly a bit shy and nervous still. Haha. Thank you so much. Where do you find betas? Well, my phone just fell asleep. And a cat... Oh, there's a cat sleeping. I would turn the camera. I don't think Kitty would appreciate me just showing footage of her house. But anyways. Finding betas. Go to places where writers gather. Creative writing courses is a pretty good place to start. That's where I met most of my writerly friends. Writing contests. Write-ins. NaNoWriMo is a great time to like meet people. That's past, of course. But go where writers gather. check the tags on Tumblr, check forums. No one is gonna walk up to you and say, hey, I want to be your beta. And if they do, that's creepy. You have to put yourself out there. You have to go out and talk to people. Is it scary? Is it daunting? Is it problematic? Yes, it is. Talking to people is terrifying. Fun fact, everyone is terrified of talking to each other. So, by that standard, if you admit this truth, if you acknowledge it, you have the upper hand. Because you know everyone is terrified, and thus you feel no fear. At least that's what I tell myself. You have to put yourself out there. You have to go and talk to people. It's the only way. Like, no one's gonna walk up to you. Like, no one's gonna walk up to you and say, hey, I'm the solution to your problem. That fantasy is never gonna come true. You have to put yourself out there. Go to write-ins, go to gatherings, talk to other writers. You have any English majors who happen to be friends of yours? Talk to them, ask them if they can do feedback for you. That's just the way things works. The way things work. There's really no other way. Put yourself out there. You can do it, Kendra. Be brave. Be very, very brave. Alright, next question. Am I gonna edit this? Probably not. How do you revise and edit your book? Do you print out your manuscript? Or do you edit it in the computer? And by the way, does it make sense to edit first all the chapters that are told from one character POV, point of view, and once done, edit the other POV chapters? This here is a question which we answered already most of this stuff. We really did. Really quickly, how do I revise my work? In phases. I read it in different formats, in different ways. I do a quick scan on like Word and stuff to make sure that all of the misspellings are fixed, that there are no double words or missing spaces and stuff like that. Just a quick scan, and then I just start reading it. I read it on the computer. I read it once on my phone because it's a different format altogether. I have the computer read it to me, and I also read it out loud. That is the best. That is one of the best things, because you literally like hold up your book, and I don't want to say record yourself. You don't have to, but pretend as though you're reading it to somebody. That will really put your priorities in the foreground. Because if you're like, oh man, this doesn't flow. If I was saying this in front of an audience, it wouldn't sound good. Now, I know that for some people, you could be like, oh my god, I'm terrified now. Remember, you can fix all of this. You can make it sound good. Get into character. Read it as it's blurred. Hey, camera, work with me. Get in character, you know? Get into the mood and start reading it passionately. Believe in your writing. Trust me, a lot of writing out there is really good. You just have to believe in yourself. Believe it! Okay, wow, that's the Weeble reference of the day out of the way. Do I print out my manuscript? I used to. I don't anymore. It's kind of wasteful, expensive, and it's just piling up space, getting moldy in the closet. Not anymore, though. I edit on the computer, and do I think does it make sense? Well, I mean, anything can make sense if you try hard enough. I honestly wouldn't do what you're proposing because I'm a different writer. I read the whole book as though it's a book. Because once the time has passed, I like to be able to read it as though somebody else wrote the damn thing. And that way, you have so much space. And trust me, I know this may feel super weird for somebody who hasn't gone through this process, but writing the book, waiting a month, and picking it up is awesome. Because you're not that person anymore. You're completely, absolutely disconnected from that person. It feels awesome because you're like, oh my god, Max from a month ago completely screwed up this sentence. Good thing Max from the present is here to fix this up. Seriously, that's what it feels like. Honestly, you could if you wanted to. I would honestly read the whole thing. Read it as though it's a book. So it gives you the impression of how the book would work out. That's just how I would do things, though. And for the next question, it goes a little bit like this. I wrote my first draft plain. What I mean by this is I left out a lot of description and made no effort to make nice sentences or paragraphs. Any advice on elaborating and editing without tearing myself apart for writing it so poorly? Should I make more of an effort with my first draft next time? So I'll have this question here because it's one of those things that comes up every once in a while. And I guess it's the natural extreme of the advice that I keep offering, which is fix it in the revision draft. My thing is this. I believe that the first draft is gathering clay. You gather all of the clay you can, and then you mold it in the revision. You end up cutting some of it, a lot of it, depending on what sort of story you're telling. But I rather have more cloth to cut than less. That's why I rather write a lot, and I rather take my time with the first draft than having to deal with that in the revision draft. I think the worst experience I ever had was, there were a couple of stories, I won't tell you their names because they're ancient, but there were a couple of stories I wrote, and I didn't write the epilogue because I got lazy. I was really young back then. I got lazy. I said, you know what? And I justified it so well. You know, I can't write the epilogue until I've edited the whole story. Clearly, right? That makes sense. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yeah, let's get out of the mind of these characters. So, 3 months down the line, you're unable to get into their mindset. That was a bad thing. That was a bad... I still feel bad about that. That was a bad choice. For the future, I recommend you to write. Take as long as you need to. I feel like this may have come from an NaNoWriMo as well, where it's like, well, I had to rush to finish the book, and now the book is not that good. You can fix it. Right now, you're basically, all of that work that you would have had to put on the first draft, you have to do it now. That's just the way things are. What people miss is that you're going to have to do all of this work anyway. You can do it early, or you can do it later. You're going to have to do all that work either way. That's just the way things are. Is it unfortunate? Is it problematic? That's the way life is, though. I recommend you, toughen up and get through it. You wrote this story. Is it going to be hard? Is it going to be rough? Yes, it is. Of course it is. You put all of that hard work off until now. For the future, I do recommend you to probably have more. Write more. It's way better to have more cloth. I know I changed the analogy. I know. Keep following me on this. It's better to have more cloth to cut than less, because then you have to get back into the writing mode, and it's problematic months after you wrote that story. It's a recipe for disaster. That's too dramatic. It's hard to work like that. It's gonna be way harder down the road. Okay. I've rambled on way too long. My tea is like done. I have more questions to go though. For you, if you're working on this project, I would like to recommend you to dedicate yourself to it. You know, you put off that work, you're gonna have to deal with it now. You can do it. It's the same work you would have done anyway. You're not doing more work. You're doing the same work you would have done anyway. And next time, write a little bit more. Write a little bit more. Take your time. Get that cloth out there so you can cut it freely later, okay? Okay. 2 more questions. And I don't want to say they're repeats, but they're pretty close to being repeats. The first one goes a little bit like this. When exactly do you know you're done editing? Like, when is it the right time to stop before you start over-editing and actually ruining your work? Go. I don't have water. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, you can't ruin your work. Why? Because you can always change it. Like, again, writing is not painting on a canvas. You can't ruin that canvas. It's not marble. You can't run out of marble. You can always just change it, okay? You can't ruin your work. There comes a point in which if you keep editing and editing and editing and editing, the diminishing returns come in the form of you wasting your time. That's what it is. There's no other way to say it. I know it sounds kind of rude. That's what it is, though. You're wasting your time. When exactly do I know? I've created my own system. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more on the next question, but create your own system. Create your own phases. Read the story X amount of times, looking for X amount of things, and make your notes and move on from there. I know that it's super ambiguous because writing is super ambiguous. Everyone does it differently. What I do want you to keep in mind, though, and consider this like the telltale sign that you are wasting your time editing, that you have read it too many times, is if you read the story, you can't find anything to fix, or, and follow me up on this, you can't find anything wrong. Now, stop. You're thinking something, and you should not. What I say by that is that it's not because there's nothing wrong in your story. There should always be something wrong in my story. No. It means that your brain is so used to reading this story that it can't find anything wrong at all. There will always be little things in your writing that you don't like. There are always going to be little sentences that you think you could have done better, or little sentences where you think to yourself, yeah, this sentence is a little bit stuffy. but it's the only way to have the sentence to match the flow and to get out what I want to get out. Those things will always be there. But if your brain is receiving no signals whatsoever, you have gotten used to the writing. You have memorized this story, and your brain is no longer looking at it. You are this close. This close. Press your hand against your nose and see if you can see the details of your palm. You can't. You're too close. If you're doing that, take a break, share it with somebody, and take some time. Okay? Okay. And as for the final question, Max, do you use a revision and editing checklist? You, the person who asked this question, is really clever because I am a sucker for my systems. I'm a sucker for the way that I do things. And yes, of course, I use a revision and editing checklist. I've created, back when I worked at the laboratory, I was in charge of making SOPs, a standard operating procedures. And basically a checklist of things. It's like, to do this, you must do this, in this order. And I took that for writing. I created an SOP of, during the first phase, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm focusing on. And as I read it, I check things off. For the second phase, I'm doing this. For the third phase, I do that. For the fourth phase, I do this. For the fifth phase, I do that. And focusing each one on one particular thing. Have things like read the story out loud. Have the computer read it to you. Read it on a different device. And also a specific flavor things like read the story as though you're your worst critic. Read the story as though you're the worst, you're that one person you hate. What would you change? What would be the coup de grace of this story? What would be the failing point? And getting those mindsets. Revision and editing boils down a lot to reading and reading and reading and reading. And like I said with the previous question, if you keep doing that, there is an enormous chance that your brain will get used to it. And your brain, wanting to make things easy because the human brain is pretty darn lazy, it's going to start ignoring the facts, the details, the things you should be keeping an eye on. And the only way to prevent that is to keep changing the environment. Change the way you read it, print it out. It's a little wasteful for me, but maybe it's not for you. Maybe you don't mind. Perfect. Read it physically, read it on the laptop, read it on your phone, read it out loud. Keep changing it so your brain can't get used to it. Take pauses, take time. All of those things are actually in my checklist. I believe that after the first 2 passes, I have like a checklist. I bought a box that says, wait 1 week before reading the book ever again. Or before moving on, wait a week. And stuff like that. Make your own. I can't share you mine because it's going to give you unrealistic expectations. Make your own, though. Make your own. I don't want to make it seem like writing can become a mechanized process. But coming in with a little bit of format helps because it gives you a guide for where to go. And I hope that if anything, this video gave you ideas for how to make your own systems, your own way to do things. I know that revision, kind of like writing, is this enormous, ambiguous thing where it's like, how does it work? Nobody tells you. Nobody talks about it. I did. I just did. I told you. Take it one piece at a time, one thing at a time, and focus on what you want to do. Just pulling it out and reading it without direction, without purpose, you're going to burn out. You're going to start ignoring the details, the ones that you're trying to change. Focus, take it bit by bit, and everything will be just fine. Anyhow, this video has gone on way too long, way too long. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you want more, and if you enjoy my content, please consider pledging to my Patreon page. It is making this entire channel possible. But yes. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me on this ridiculous Answerathon, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. One more thing before I go. I was thinking of like future Answerathons, and I think we're right about the impasse to maybe start doing specific ones like character creation Answerathons or setting Answerathons. And if you have ideas for future Answerathons, please leave them down in the comments below. For the time being though, I'm gonna make myself some tea, probably get that cat off my bag, and move on with the rest of my day. I hope you have a lovely day as well, and I'll be seeing you on the next one.